online transaction, domestic or international, to be implemented from January, of course, dependent on the government's approval or not. But we would like to look at this from a business perspective. What does this mean for Nigerians? What does this mean for the government? And exactly what is the highest rate, of VAT that can be charged on a transaction like this? Good morning, sir.
Good morning, madam.
Tell me a little bit about Cibn before we go into my question per se. Introduce yourself and tell us about Cibn a little, what you do particularly.
Okay, good morning, viewers. My name is Adeyemo Adeoye. I'm the first vice chairman of Cibn Lagos State branch. Essentially, the Institute of Bankers, called with the acronym Cibn, is set up to bring professionalism into banking. And that covers training, that covers certification, that covers the building of content, and then everything that has to do with training of banking professionals. And in addition to that, the Institute has been involved in a lot of advocacies these days because things continue to evolve. Advocacy and then setting the tone in professionalization in the banking industry is part of the core mandates of the Society of Bankers of Nigeria. Well, this is the Lagos State chapter. For the national, we have our president as Dr. Uche Messiah Olowo. And then in Lagos State, our own chairman is Mr. Peter Ashade, who is the group CEO of United Capital. The Society of Bankers essentially set to tone in professional banking, including training, and then setting exams and advocacy, and then building content when it comes to professionalization of the sector.
Now let's go into my question. When it comes to taxation, we seem to not be doing so well in Nigeria. I was listening to a speech delivered by the former Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, when she was still in office, and she was talking basically about only about 20 Nigerians who are billionaires pay accurate taxes. It was so bad that she said they pay, but they don't pay accurately, which makes it all difficult for us to get more money. And so she said, if everybody comes on board and starts paying taxes, we will get better. We would achieve more as a nation. Now, rather than exploring that, the FIR's boss is saying, you know what? We're going to be charging a VAT on online transactions and on other kind of transactions, international and domestic. What do you make of that?
Okay, let me first bring a background to this debate. First and foremost, last year Nigeria's budget was 8.6 trillion naira.
Yes.
And then FIRS generated 5.3 trillion naira, which is 54% of the total amount generated.
Yes.
And then the 5-point-something trillion generated by FIRS is actually, there was actually a 40% increase over the 2017 metrics. Now, the non-oil sector generated about 54% of total revenue for last year. And then you continue to see that oil continues to dance in tandem with the vagaries in the international market.
Yes.
So the revenue of the country continues to decline in oil sector. And there was a time that oil sector generates maybe about 70% of our total budget. And then the budget continues to dance to the vagaries in the international market. So the president is looking at, there is a revenue head that increased by 40% last year. And then that is contributing 54% to the total revenue.
Okay.
And that was the first time in the history of the nation. So the president is looking at, let me look at if I can increase that and then rely less
on oil, because that is the direction in the international economy now. Everybody that has oil is looking away from oil because it has a lot of undertone. And so the president is calling at the FIRS boss. If I'm the president as well, I'll try and look at areas where I can generate more revenues. So he's calling at the FIRS boss to say, look, you have been the lion in the jungle. I mean, you have been contributing the highest revenue for me this year. And so I have to look at that area because
Can you do
the
more?
one for the one for oil, I cannot control it.
But you
OPEC is there, but
can do
you are
more.
the one that it seems to be generating more. So I need to talk to you. And then, so he wants to see the fact that, one, not a lot of people are in the tax band, in the tax bucket. Not many people. Some people don't even pay.
At all.
Look at the informal sector, for instance. If you go to, for instance, the Jomota or Kari, the kind of transactions that are generated on daily basis.
I was having a conversation with a woman that sells chewing gum about 4 years ago. Yeah, my son is about 4 years, so about 4 years ago. And she said to me, I do 600,000 on a good day, daily. She sells chewing gum.
Okay, so you really find that there's a limitation on the tax buckets. So the government, if we can expand the tax base, I think that we can also do well, better than what we're doing in tax. So the president is saying, okay, if we cannot do that for now, the people that are paying, can you see whether you can explore more outlets within that space? And so that's why the FRS boss, subject to approval of the president, is saying that from next year, January, of course, we still have to go through the approval process. I suspect the National Assembly and so on and so forth. But if we can then increase, because last year, about 1.6 trillion naira transaction was done through the online platform. And so if you are taxing that, you know what can come on from that, that area. So the government is concerned that, look, oil is becoming it's going to the back burner, and then non-oil, significantly tax, is taking the front burner role. So why can't you still see if we can expand that platform and then raise more revenue to finance a lot of our projects?
All right, Mr. Jumpe, you know, a little bit about this issue came up while we're talking about e-transactions. Now, if you tax online transactions and you're encouraging on one hand, you're mopping up cash, you don't want to do cash, you want to do more of e-transactions, are you not going to discourage people from doing e-transactions by going that route of charging them no matter how little the fee is?
Okay, thank you for your question, and thank you for having us. Tax is a civic responsibility, and we should ordinarily voluntarily comply, because the business of government is to raise taxes and to spend it for public good for all of us. But in our climb, we find a lot of tax evasion, and in the tax bracket, the percentage of voluntary compliance is still very little. Then government has to look at collection, you know, the cost of collection. If you have to do collection directly vis-a-vis what you can achieve with digital collection of taxes. So why they are looking at taxing the online transactions is to try to raise the tax net, the tax income through the digital approach. That is taxing consumption. We must all eat and consume things and everything. So if you are taxing it from that end, a lot of people cannot avoid it.
So when I go to the supermarket to buy, I pay.
Yes.
I go to the eatery to buy something, I pay.
Yes.
You do online transactions you pay. You
No,
transfer.
definitely, because we do card when we go to those places.
Exactly.
So, which means each time you swipe your card, you're going to pay.
Yes.
But if you do cash,
Yes.
would you pay?
You know, the informal economy can evade and avoid tax. But that is why a lot of digitization is being encouraged, even by government, because once you embrace digital banking, your transactions are online and can now be taxed. You know, you must pay your VAT for consumption, and that is not discouraging people from consumption. In any case, people must eat. You know,
Definitely.
people must eat. So it is like the low-hanging fruit. You know, the easy way out of a collection. Online transactions, people must do purchases and all that. So because you know that it is easy to get your taxes from that end, you approach it from that end. It is like solving from the known to the unknown. You know, there is still a lot of involuntary, I mean, people don't comply willingly with the tax laws. People don't voluntarily go to the tax stations and say, assess me, this is my income, and then they pay voluntarily. So if people don't comply willingly,
Yes.
then government has to be creative to find ways of growing the tax income.
And brings me to another issue. You mentioned a very, very valid point when you're talking about government trying to, you know, digitize everything. I had an encounter at the Ministry of Justice quite recently. I wanted to sign a form, and I was to pay 300 naira. That's small. They didn't take cash. They only take card. So, which means I had to pay with my card for that 300 naira, which I got a receipt for. They don't take cash at all. So imagine that we now do cards for every transaction, which means that whether you evade taxes or not, physically, the government still gets their tax through the back door every time you swipe your card. Do you see President Muhammadu Buhari affirming or appending his signature to such a deal?
Well, without contempt to the way he's going to talk, he's the president, and then
Yes, definitely.
most of the time he makes his decision. They are based on evolving issues,
Yes.
and then on prevalent things at that time. I've been giving you the background that for the first time we had a 54% contribution to our spending
Yes.
last year. And then the oil sector is, the revenue from oil sector is defined by a lot of things in the international market.
Okay.
So I think that it will do that. If I'm in the shoes, I will do that, because here is a revenue pot for me to be able to implement. Don't forget that most of the budgets are, these days, there's a need to invest more in capital and infrastructural expenditure.
Yes.
As time goes on, because most of our infrastructures are dilapidating. There's huge infrastructural deficits in the Nigerian economy as we speak. And so the president will likely say yes, because saying yes will help him to implement most of the policies upon which he campaigned for re-election. And I think he wants to do that.
And he will want to do that. All right, we've been talking to the representatives of the CIB, and of course, they gave me free tickets to attend. I'm claiming my
Lagos
they gave me
Bankers and
free tickets
Stakeholders
to
Night
attend their
2019.
bankers night, and I will definitely be there tomorrow. I think it's taking place at Muson
It's tomorrow,
Center.
yes, at
Center,
Muson Center, yes.
tomorrow.
How many
from
tickets are you giving me again?
5 p.m.
We can give you up to 5 tickets.
Oh, you can give me free tickets,
Yes,
5
please.
free tickets. Okay, so MITV has free 5 tickets to be at that event, and I'm sure that you have it open for other people. You have a website that people can go to check more about the event.
Yes, you can go to the Institute's website, cibn.org, and then you will see a lot of things, even about the Institute of Bankers, the things that are going on at the moment, our advocacy, I've told you about our professionalization and so on and so forth. But we want people to come tomorrow because we are discussing a very sensitive issue.
I know the topic we discussed on Monday.
Exactly. And so this has to do with digitization. And then also supporting the government. You know, we've talked about the government raising some of this revenue via online transactions.
Yes.
So we have called stakeholders to come. We've called you, we've called other people from all sectors of the economy to come so that we can cross-fertilize ideas about this and then see how we can also help government in their revenue generation drive.
Thank you very much for coming, sir.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Thank you
for
for
coming.
having us.
We take a quick break now. You know, I said we're looking at some human angle issues. Some 14-year-olds are no longer 14-year-olds because they do what adults do. A 14-year-old girl kidnapped herself, organized or faked her own kidnap.